All right, so let's rewind to 2009. American Idol was the #1 TV show. Beyonce's Single Ladies, remember, that was #1 as well. And in the NBA, Blake Griffin was the #1 draft pick. Take a look at the top 10 picks of the 2009 draft. Blake Griffin, #1 overall. Steph Curry, 7. Brandon Jennings at 10. Round it all off. If you had to do it all over again, and you were in charge of an NBA team, and I'm talking to you, Mr. Broussard, would you still take Blake Griffin at 1?
Now, we know what going into the draft, we know how every player is playing in the NBA to this point in their career, or we still are judging it with the same news that we had as they were all entering the draft?
Knowing what you know now, where they are right now.
Knowing what we know now?
Yeah.
Look, you can't go wrong with Blake Griffin, but there's no question in my mind right now, knowing what we know, I would have to take Steph Curry. I mean, even though I voted for James Harden to be MVP, I can't get mad at Steph winning it because I thought it was that close. And Steph, they're all great players, those three guys. But I would take Steph first. And you can look at it several ways. Remember, the Clippers, of course, didn't have Chris Paul at that time. So you would have needed a point guard. So Steph Curry would have been the guy to take. But we can look at these lineups. You know, Steph has led his team to a great regular season. He's won an MVP award. And when we look at their supporting cast, particularly Blake and Steph, Blake's got the guy who's been the best point guard in the league for the past 5 years before Steph took that title this year. Okay? You got a top flight center in DeAndre Jordan. You've got a great sixth man in Jamal Crawford. And you've got a top 5 coach who I still think at this point, just because Kerr's only done it for 1 year, you still probably have to put Doc Rivers ahead of Steve Kerr right now. So you've got a great coach. Steph has another great all-star guard next to him, and then some really, really, really good players, but none of them that'll probably make an all-star team next season. And then a very good neophyte coach in Steve Kerr. So Blake has as much help as Steph has, and yet Steph is able to win more games. He's obviously probably the most exciting player in the league, although Blake is exciting as well. Look, I'm not mad at, the Clippers for taking Blake. He's tremendous. He's getting better. And now that you got Chris Paul, you have a great backcourt, frontcourt 1-2 punch. But, hey, I'd have to take the MVP, a guy who could very easily become the face of this league. Some might say he already is because he led the league in all-star votes. I would still say it's LeBron is the face of the league, but you can't go wrong with Steph. So I would take Steph #1.
Yes, I don't know if you remember this, but before that draft, I went on record on this show saying I would take Steph over Blake at #1 in that draft. But then you and I began to debate Blake Griffin. You were completely sold on Blake, remember, going into his first year after the draft. And I was skeptical because I'm a University of Oklahoma fan because I grew up in Oklahoma City. So I watched probably close to every game Blake played. And remember, he went back for a second year at OU. So he wasn't a one and done. He went back for a sophomore year. And Chris, I think I told you we did outside the lines debates about this. I told you that he couldn't make a shot beyond 3 feet in college. Now, maybe I overwatched him. I watched too closely. I was a little too hypercritical because I root for the University of Oklahoma, but he was a 59% free throw shooter. Even in his second year, he averaged 2 assists per game, which wasn't bad, but there's none of this 10 assists in the second half kind of thing. My point about Blake is, Chris, I don't think I've ever seen a player improve as much as Blake Griffin has the last couple of years. He can shoot the lights out now. That 15 to 18-foot shot, if you just dare him to sit there and take it, he will take it and he will make it and make it and make it. He'll make jump shots off the glass. He'll occasionally make a three-point shot. And then, again, just to have the capability to have 10 second-half assists last night is just astonishing to me. And I give it up to this guy who early on, to me, was just a jump over the Kia dunker. You know, he was a win the slam dunk. He was Lob City. He was perfect for that team. But now he's become a basketball player. Now, he'll occasionally play a little out of control. He had that terrible killer turnover at the end of Game 2 of the Spurs series at home, lost that game, and he went 1 for 9 in Game 5 in the fourth quarter and missed a couple of free throws and had 3 turnovers. He'll have those games occasionally, but he has come miles and miles in my book. I would still barely take Steph at number 1, but I just wanted to tell you that I'm seeing so much more out of Blake Griffin. I think it's the Doc Rivers effect that you talked about a couple of questions ago. But he is starting to amaze me as a basketball player, and I never thought I would see this from him.
Yeah, I think you were a little, you were a little overly critical and underestimated his skills going into the league. I mean, he still came into the league and played really well. But you're right, he's improved tremendously. Now, Doc Rivers told me last night, after, Doc did his interviews at the podium, he said he's like Bill Walton as a passer. Huh. I asked him, I said, where does Blake get all these assists from now? Yeah, he said, look, I've been saying all along, he said, this guy, it is. He said he's like Bill Walton passing the basketball, which, as you know, is high praise. Well, I'm with you. He's improved tremendously. And I give you credit because there were very few people. You and Bobby Knight are like the only people I remember raving about Steph Curry. Yeah. I certainly didn't think he would be this good. I didn't think he'd really be an all-star caliber player, let alone an MVP.
Well, Chris, the other thing that turned me away from Blake early was his reputation at the University of Oklahoma for being soft. That you could get physical with him early in those Big 12 games, and he would just sort of fold up and go away. And as late as, when did Chauncey come on our show? A couple of years ago?
Miami final,
we had Chauncey on the show before he worked at ESPN. This was 2 years ago. Yep. And he basically, I don't know if he used the word soft, but I think that was the message was that even as his teammate, he saw Blake as a little too soft. I'm not seeing that anymore. I'm seeing Bull and China Shop occasionally where he plays a little out of control, but he ain't no softy, I can tell you that. He is crashing and banging, and people, he's taking his pound of flesh in the paint.
Much like you do, Chris, when you come on TV. Yes.
Let me say this. People might think this is crazy. If these guys can stay healthy, remember, John Stockton and Karl Malone did not get to the finals till many, many years of playing together. Yep. And I think you could, look, Chris Paul, all-time great point guard, you could see these two become a Stockton-Malone type tandem.
I could see it. I could, honestly.
All right.
Yeah.
Chris Broussard, thank you for holding it down for us in Houston. We appreciate it. We're going to put you out of the chair and put our coach, Herm Edwards, in the chair. It is always a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it.
Yep. Go get him, Herm. Thanks, Skip.
Go get him. My producer says Packy-ouch. I don't have that in me to say
Packy-ouch?
Packy-ouch.
Who came up with that?
Brian Borg.
Oh, way to go, Brian. That's
Manny
clever.
reveals he had an injured shoulder during Saturday's big fight. We'll get the thoughts from our coach, Packy-ouch. I don't know if that has enough swagger for me to say, but you like it. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. Okay, all right. Brian, we like it. See you in a minute. All right, so we talked about how the Cowboys did in the draft. What about the Jets? They got Leonard Williams, and in the fourth round, they managed to pick up what Skip says is the steal, quarterback Bryce Petty. After the draft, we want to rank the Jets in the AFC East. Coach still here with us. Where do you rank them? Are they really going to give the Patriots a run for their money?
I think they are. I think all those teams in the division are. But it started with me with the Jets before the draft. Okay. When they went out and acquired a whole new secondary. They brought Camardi back. They brought Revis back. Screens. Gilchrist. Okay? So when you look at that, this is a team that gave up 31 touchdown passes last year. They were really good up front. They had a front seven with Wilkerson and the guys, and now they get Leonard. They went out and got Brandon Marshall on offense. They also bring in the kid from Ohio State, Devin Smith. Okay? Reminds me a lot of Lavernius Coles, built-wise. Okay? And the key is they bring in Chan Gailey, offensive coordinator. Okay. He's a guy that can take an athlete, especially a quarterback, and put him in position to run an offense around his skill set. So Chan is involved in this offense, which I think will be a lot better than it was last year.
Okay. You know, you might even enjoy coaching this team.
He's staying here. He doesn't want to leave the spin.
Yeah, because you know what staying here is?
Yeah.
You never have to worry about the score.
Oh.
It's always good. You win every Sunday.
You've been there and done
been there,
right?
Yes. Won a division while I was there, by the way.
You know what? This well could be the best defense in pro football. Especially now that you throw Leonard Williams, we had him here on the show, he's a talent, he's a raw kid and all that, but if you throw him into the rotation and just let him go in there and just let it fly, which they will be able to do, they are going to be a load for anybody to deal. It's going to be hard to score on this defense. The front seven, the back seven, however you want to look at it, they're loaded from top to bottom. To me, it just comes down to the quarterback. Now, I like all the pieces around him, Brandon Marshall, and they got my man Zach Stacy from Vanderbilt University.
Just a reminder.
So these are all nice picks. Devin Smith makes big plays, you know, okay.
Especially, the little side of this. The Buffalo Bills, they got pretty good defense,
yeah, they
too.
do.
They got
They
good
do.
defense.
The Miami Dolphins?
Yeah.
When got Sue and the guys? They're pretty good, too. So all of a sudden, all these teams realize, we don't have the quarterback maybe to beat Tom Brady.
Sure.
Well, on the other side of football, we better load up.
Yeah.
And go hit Tom Brady. Try to cover those receivers.
Sure, we're just
this
not going to lay down.
This is going to be an interesting division. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Maybe in 2 years, Bryce Petty, it could even take 3 years. He's just going to be a really good starting quarterback in the league, but he'll be raw for a while.
But in the meantime, they're sticking with Geno, right?
Right. Gino's the guy right now.
Well, I don't know. Ryan Fitzpatrick might be the guy.
Well, he's recovering from a broken leg. What do you think? You think Geno? All right. I wanted to say thank you to Chris Broussard, Chauncey Billups, Coach Herm Edwards, and our very own Stephen A. Smith.
Breaking news.
Came in here, gave us some breaking news.
Floyd wants Manny in a year.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
Here we go again.
Here we go again.
That check sound good, doesn't it?
See you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN 2. Thank you for joining us. Have a great afternoon, everyone.